And then there were two.
Because there's only two of us, we only have to take half as many questions today. We have just a few days until there's a government shutdown because of the end of the fiscal year and no way forward. It's really a shame we're on the verge of another unnecessary crisis. For months, we've called for a bipartisan negotiation to make sure that we can fund the government for the next year. We've had no response, basically. We have wasted votes, and wasted votes. The Republican leader has had all these empty show votes. The press reports today he has broken all records for revoting. We've revoted on the Iran thing 3 times. Planned Parenthood, I don't know how many times, and on with all the revotes. Record-breaking. The Republican leader has forced the Senate to take more of these show votes than any time in the history of the country in the first 9 months. This is a waste of the time of the Senate and certainly is not helpful to the American people. We should be working to keep government open, creating jobs, and helping the middle class. There's no time for another unnecessary shutdown crisis. We're going to move to a clean CR on Thursday, and I've said publicly when Senator McConnell mentioned he was going to do this, I said, good. I hope that there's a path forward. As you know, the rules of the Senate are very complicated sometimes. And 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 senators can create a lot of problems on the floor. So we'll see what happens on Thursday. Now, the Republican leaders also on the floor, and here I understand a few minutes ago talked about how we're stopping the appropriation bills from going forward. Senator Durbin and I have been on the Appropriations Committee a long time. I was on there a long time. And I know how appropriation bills get passed. And the way you get them passed is not having them partisan. The budget that they're working under is as partisan as anything could be. So no matter how many times he comes out and says, why can't we pass an appropriation bill? Because they're unfair to the American people. And that's why the Republicans have refused to negotiate with us. I guess they want to continue on this partisan path that leads to a government shutdown. So I would hope that on Thursday we can have a short-term CR, then move forward to have a bill for the rest of the year that is one that has no vexatious riders on it, that is fair to everyone. You know, we all believe in funding the military. It's so important. But it's also important that we take care of middle-class Americans who are so desperate for help. I would hope that we're able to do something about the ravaging drought that's facing our country. The West is being burned as we speak. We've had fires in California that are 2 worst fires in the history of the country, burning hundreds of homes. And the government agencies responsible for fighting those fires have no money to do it. They're using money for basic maintenance and running their various divisions, fighting fires rather than trying to help the people they're responsible for in a more direct fashion. So I hope that we can do something with this omnibus, call it whatever you want, after we have the short-term CR, which I hope we can get to. It is something that is going to be good for our country. Senator Durbin.
Thanks, Senator Reid. Do you remember what the first bill was under the McConnell leadership? Senate Bill 1, the XL pipeline, the highest priority of Senator McConnell. We told him at the time the bill was going nowhere, and that's exactly what happened. He has been pursuing that same destination as Republican leader ever since. Think what happened last week. 5 votes that were totally unnecessary on the Iran agreement. After every member of the Senate had declared their position, after a formal vote was taken, we stuck around for another week for 5 more votes, going nowhere. Where are we today? It's rerun time for those of you who are tuned in. We're going back to the issue about funding Planned Parenthood. We just left the issue about 20-week abortion. It's a rerun of issues that have been considered before. You have to ask yourself at some point, what is the goal of the Republican leadership in the House and the Senate? You would think the first goal would be to keep our government running, and yet now we're still facing a Republican shutdown. This seems to be the week where they're showcasing Republican candidates for president in the Senate. Lindsey Graham, then Ted Cruz, I don't know who's next. But it isn't getting the work of the people done. It was June the 18th when the leadership on the Democratic side sent a letter to Senator McConnell and said, you know, there is a deadline looming of September 30th where we have to have a new budget. Let's start negotiating now. Let's not wait till the last minute and face a shutdown. What did they do? They're waiting until the last minute. The people deserve better. The people of this country deserve better. And this notion that we are going to take care of the Department of Defense and ignore all of the rest of government that funds programs that help middle-income Americans and those who are struggling, that is not a balanced approach to budgeting. We need to sit down with the President in a bipartisan fashion and come up with a budget negotiation quickly. Let's put behind the rerun Republican agenda and let's move forward.
You talked a little bit about your meeting with President Obama last week on the subject of the budget. Do you think that Obama would veto a year-long CR, which seems to be what Republicans are angry for?
The conversation we had in the Oval Office with Leader Pelosi and the President was a very, very good meeting. Our goal is to get a funding bill that's good for the American people. The three of us agree that's the right thing to do. He agrees the same thing that I just went over with. We have to make sure that we know how to pay for what we're going to do. Going into this, we need to know what the top lines are for the defense and middle-class America. We have to make sure that the riders are not these mean-spirited things that defund the EPA and all the riders dealing with women's health. We want to work with the Speaker and Senator McConnell, and we want to agree to a short-term CR that's clean, as Senator McConnell said, and then move in so that whatever time that this date is extended, I would have a shorter date, but if it's early in December, we'll agree to that. But I hope at that time it's the end of the program as far as CRs go. We got to get this done. So the conversation with the President was a constructive one. We're not out to take prisoners. We're out to do what we can to help the American people become unafraid of what's happened these last years with Republicans. You know, this 94, Gingrich shut down the government over Medicaid. A couple of years ago, it was shut down because of Obamacare, and now they're going to do it over women's health. This is not the way you should run a government. If they want to get appropriation bills, here's how you do it. Have it bipartisan. That's how we got it done for the many years I've been here and many, many years before I got here.
Senator Reid, why are you so confident in Senator?
Yes, Dave?
Senator Reid, what do you look forward to, or how are you looking ahead in the Pope's speech? Is there something that you hope that he touches on, certain messages? Beyond that, there's a more on the Congress. Republican senators suggested earlier standing up and sitting on one side like something and the other side doesn't. You don't think that's a good idea? How do you think the Congress?
I hope that we can give the Pope a round of applause that's, when he comes there, that is significant for our admiration for him and what he's done, and when he leaves. And I would hope that if there's applause during the speech, we can all applaud, but not the up and down stuff. I think that's not a dignified way to conduct ourselves. About the Pope, what I'm looking forward to him, I'm not a member of the Catholic faith, but the best friend I ever had in my life was a very devout Catholic, the most honest man I ever knew, Governor Michael Callahan, my high school teacher. The time that we have had Pope Francis has been a time for, I think, all of us, Catholic and non-Catholics, of inspiration. He's been an inspiring man. So I look forward to personally meeting him, shaking his hand, and telling him how much I admire him.
Senator Reed, why do you think Senator McConnell is going to introduce a gold CR? He just declined to tell us that he's not holding that?
Well, it's yes. The answer is yes. He's talked about a clean CR. That's what those are the words out of his mouth. If he's not going to do that, I have no idea what his plan is. I know we're going to have a vote day after tomorrow on a CR defunding Planned Parenthood. As Senator Durbin said, that's not going to go anyplace. So after that, I think the time constraints we have, he better move to a clean CR.
Senator Reid, did the caucus react to the CR that that caucus put out there extending funding to December 11 at DCA levels? Do you support that kind of framework?
We're going to wait and see what Senator McConnell does on Thursday, because once Planned Parenthood's gone, remember this, everybody. Remember how many times he criticized me for filling the tree? Wow, man, I was a pauper compared to him. But anyway, and we haven't objected to his tearing down the tree, but he's going to have to fill it with something else, and I hope it would be a clean CR.
Senator Reid,
I recognize that voice. How come you're back there? You're supposed to be over here.
ask on a completely different topic, but
The Nationals. Bryce Harper for MVP.
it's a sports question, actually.
Oh,
but
good.
It's not about baseball.
As long as it's not about hockey.
What do you make of all of these? I don't know if you've seen them, but these pay-for fantasy games that have been dominating all the commercial time in the NFL games and whatnot. I figure that might be of interest to someone from Las Vegas.
As some of you know, one of my prior lives, I was chairman of the Nevada Gaming Commission, and during those days, we were the only gambling deal in town. Gambling is a very difficult thing to control. It's when you have the commodity as cash, it's very hard to control. And so when I was recovering from my injury, somebody sent me a long book to listen to dealing with fantasy sports. To be honest with you, I appreciate the gift, but it just didn't mean anything to me. I'm not into that stuff. I like the real thing. My point is, I hope there's ways of controlling this money that's obviously being bet on fake games and fake players. Okay, I think we had enough, Dick?
We've had enough.
Okay.